and welcome to the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy Holistic Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly, and today we have a very beautiful, wonderful guest, Dr. Kenzie Rhodes. She's a doctor of spiritual alchemy. In 2021, a high-level soulmate contract activated her spiritual awakening and catapulted her into grid working and earth energy healing. Before too long, she was learning traditional hypnosis and NLP, seal and implant clearing, and quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHHT. She started taking people on powerful metaphysical journeys into past lives. Here they find answers to questions and access higher statute. Okay. Here they find answers to questions and access higher states of consciousness for energy healing on behalf of Earth and humanity. Today, she will talk to us about the Regression Hypnosis and QHHT, which was founded by Dolores Cannon, if you're familiar with that. Well, enough of that. Obviously, I can't read very well today. Apologize for that. But welcome, Dr. Kenzie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again. This is getting familiar.
Oh, yeah. Well, we love talking to you, and you always have something new to talk about. So, you talked about the seals last time. If you're interested in seals, you can see her previous podcast. And so now we're going to talk about the Dolores Cannon stuff, the QHHT. So, tell us how did you get involved in that, and what is it all about?
Well, interestingly, I've always been interested in it, but it was kind of not something that was accessible to me. And I've heard for many years actually about how Dolores Cannon pioneered the past life regression technique. She was very, very successful in bringing people back and, finding all kinds of amazing information. Many times people that treated with her would come from all over the world because she just had the gift. She was a master, clearly. And, sometimes people would even experience spontaneous healing of issues that had been plaguing them in their life that they just couldn't seem to get relief from through any of the so-called traditional methods. And so, in many ways, she was able to help bring people to these higher level access points of spiritual and physical healing. So she was quite miraculous in what she did. And so as I was going through that period of really accelerated work with as service to others, when I had told you before that when I finished the seal clearing, the class, I was just guided that I needed to do my part. I needed to, first of all, really practice and really hone the technique myself. And also at the same time, bring it to as many people as possible with the goal of doing my part to bringing the 100th monkey effect. Because a lot of people have never heard of Jehovah's seals or Aryan occult Draco seals. A lot of people are not really familiar with Earth's grid and the way that technology embedded in energy lines are able to actually hijack human consciousness as well as cause damage in, the Earth field. And so through the course of that work, as I was going hard and fast, and I think I told you my goal was 100 sessions, I ended up doing 120. So I was really happy to be able to just bring this information to so many people. But as I was getting to the end of the time I had given to myself, where I was going to complete this, I started seeing these advertisements popping up for QHHT Academy. And so I'm like, QHHT Academy. Wow. I mean, I knew Dolores Cannon had passed, I think around 2014. So about 10 years ago. I didn't know that there was anything still that was, to bring her technique to people who wanted to learn it. And so I followed the links and realized, you know what, this is actually accessible to me right now, and it's a good time. So I signed up for it and I completed level 1, became a level 1 intern. And after you finish your training, you are required to practice with as many people as possible and with a minimum of 25 before you can actually call yourself a level 1 practitioner.
Right.
And so I did that. I went out and again, all the wonderful volunteers who were so happy to work with me with the seal clearing. I had this pool of people that, energy healers that love doing anything. And so it was really awesome. The thing about QHHT is that Dolores was very, very adamant in that it needs to be done in person. And so, although I had worked with people all across the world doing the seal clearing, the numbers kind of dwindled because they needed to be people that I could get to during the day. And so what I ended up doing was I live here in Western Massachusetts. So I was going around I was scheduling the appointments with people all across Mass and also Connecticut. And the farther away people were, I would try to schedule. All right, so I'll do 2 in one day. So I need to start in, Connecticut, let's say, for instance, because that's farthest away early in the morning, and then I'll have the second one late in the afternoon. That way it gave me plenty of time, because the process does take hours. You need to really, interview and gain the trust of your client. You need to really work through the issues, get to the root of what's plaguing them before you can actually move into the technique. And so I had to kind of schedule myself, but already being used to driving myself like crazy, really hard and fast, I was able to do it. And I got through, and I actually completed 29 practice sessions. And then I realized I need to actually take the training for the second level. And so I moved right into that, finished that as well. And so I just, from in like about a month and a half from the time that I discovered that I could do it and decided I was going to, and the time that I actually became certified as level 2, it was just about a month and a half, a month and 3 weeks. So that was, again, really, really fast integration of everything. But that's kind of the way that I roll anyways. And in all of this work that I've been doing, I'm finding that I can push myself hard and fast, and I am very, very focused, and I'm going right in. And so I was finding all kinds of really amazing things that were happening, and people were really, reporting cathartic
What
experiences,
kind of
very profound.
what kind of things were people finding?
Well, I'll give you an example. I did a session with a friend that had just been diagnosed with not pancreatic cancer, a type of esophageal cancer that's situated right between her stomach and her esophagus, right at that valve. And she had been ill for a while, doesn't believe in allopathy, thinks it's absolutely barbaric, wants nothing to do with it, is older. She had just gotten diagnosed. I did a session with her. It was about a 5-hour session. Um, when she began, she was torn between, I don't want to access allopathy. I don't believe in it. It's barbaric. I feel like my time here, I'm ready to go. I feel like I've done my work. I don't really have a lot of grounding here. But she didn't want to experience all kinds of pain and suffering. And so she was stuck between, did she want to pursue all of the time and attention that it would take to find natural holistic treatments versus the barbarism of allopathy, but to not do anything? She was really frightened. She was really frightened and really torn and needed some guidance. In the session, the first place that she went to was a very cool alternate experience where she was able to once more be with a goddess who had actually named her about 20 years ago when she went to Mount Shasta. So she had been wanting to reconnect with this goddess, and she felt really alone. And this experience brought her there. She was able to reconnect with the goddess and realize that she had never been alone, that the goddess was there with her. It was her namesake. They had a conversation and communion, and then we rolled into bringing in the higher self. And she received so much information. By the time we were done, she was just crying and felt such relief. And at the end, she told me, and when she checked in with me a few days later, said that all the pain and the discomfort that she had been feeling up to that point had gone away, and it was still gone. And so not only did she really feel that now she knew where she needed to go, that she was on the right path, and be really able to trust her own inner guidance, but she also had been reconnected with the type of support that she felt she had been disconnected from. So that was really amazing. And that was a powerful, powerful experience. That was the most recent one that I did. Before that, I had a few. For instance, I had this young man who volunteered because his fiance basically said, "You need to try this." It's a relative of mine, and so very much, very not really spiritual. Was raised Catholic. Is just doing the thing. They have a baby. They're focusing on the day to day, pretty much the norm. Normies. Um, he went so quickly into accessing his higher self. And at
Wow.
the end, yeah, I was amazed. I wasn't even allowed to say the word hypnosis because that would have turned him off big time because he doesn't trust anything like that. And so we had to use relaxation and meditation. By the time we were done, he was fine with it. And he reported afterwards that he said, it was so weird because I could feel that it was me, but it wasn't me. And I was over here and me was over there talking and saying all this stuff that I had no idea. I don't know where that came from. And I said, see? And so it did a lot for him. He deals with a lot of anxiety and depression. And it since then he's been so much lighter. So just things like that, people receive whatever it is that they need. And it's such a powerful technique. It's just I'm just so grateful that it came to me now. If I had discovered this back when I was first, remember I had told you before, the very first thing that I was doing right after I started doing grid working, which was more than a year ago now, I found Paul McKenna, he's a master hypnotist from the UK. He's written many books. He's traveled around the globe. People know him. He's
Yeah.
very, mainstream traditional. So I took a training with him, and then I was too afraid to do hypnosis. All this time, up until the seal clearing, I was too afraid to do hypnosis. And so if I had found QHHT before I was ready, before I was doing the seal clearing, realizing, wow, I'm actually doing hypnosis. Isn't that great? I think I may have been too afraid to do QHHT. So it came at the perfect time. I was ready. And so now I'm moving forward, and my goal is to eventually become a level 3 practitioner. But for now, I'm just really excited to actually begin working with people and being able to say that I am now a level 2 QHHT practitioner. And I also just got an office. So many things have been happening. Yes. In the
Oh,
course of me, so when I first began the training, I realized I need to have QHHT. I need to have a session because I need to know what it feels like. I can't just go into something with no basis. So I went to the QHHT website and I looked up the directory of practitioners, and I found somebody that was not far from me. And I reached out to her, signed up for a session. She has a beautiful mansion in the next town over, which is Holyoke. Now, Holyoke is a very powerful, very sacred location. Mount Tom is there. That's a site where my friend and I went and laid 3 crystal grids across the summit, and then we traveled around the perimeter to, basically add all kinds of protective energy and really magnify what's already there. And so we love Holyoke. I love Holyoke. I was really excited to find this woman, and she has a historic mansion in Holyoke that she uses that as her site. That's her place. She does Akashic records readings, and her name is Jody Power. She's a celestial shaman. She also has a weekly meetup group and does spiritual gatherings, and has an Airbnb on one of the floors of her mansion. And so we hit it off immediately. I loved QHHT. I was really excited to experience it, and we just became fast friends after that. And since then, we've been kind of working together, and it's evolved into where she offered me a place there, a permanent office, as well as she's in the process of opening up other rooms for other energy healers to book sessions there, because that's a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And she has the availability of this wonderful place, and it's very, very high frequency. She's very high frequency. She has a great family. She has animals. It's a beautiful, beautiful location. And she wants to help the community by providing a sanctuary where people don't have to worry about this enormous cost of rent. So it's just working out perfectly. One thing leads to another, and now I have even more people that I have connected with who are, we're all on the same page, and it's so beautiful. So it's just been awesome. The last 4 or 5 months have been awesome.
Cool. But you also work online with people, right?
I still do, yes.
Yeah, because I
Just
know.
not QHHT. Yeah.
Oh, not QHHT. That has to be
Right.
a person.
Right. And Dolores Cannon was very, very adamant about that. Now, that's one of the things that you agree to as you're when you complete the training, and you agree you want to become part of the QHHT group, essentially, and so you have to agree to that. And there are more and more QHHT practitioners all across the world, because this academy is really growing. It was set up by Julia Cannon, Dolores's daughter, and in preparation, I think Julia has said in lots of the videos of the training, she would talk about her mom and how, coming to the end, Dolores was guided to make sure that she started recording carefully all of her trainings, so that there would be this library for people in the future after she had passed, to be able to access all of her wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, in keeping with the Dolores Cannon's tradition, yes, I say that it needs to be in person. But now I have an office, so I don't have to go to people's houses. Isn't that great?
It's interesting that because I've been doing hypnotherapy for over 30 years, and I do a lot of regression therapy, and I use it in some of my teachings for helping. You know, healers have to heal themselves first, so I use it to help people heal themselves. And when I
Mhm.
went online, I realized I cannot do that online. I have to do it in person. You just can't, because sometimes you have to be there. You have to be in the energy. And I know that there's no such thing as space and time, and energetically you're really there. It's not the same, because people need to lay down for the work I do, because it's long. They're in a trance a long time. They can't, unless I've learned to meditate sitting up for hours, 4 or 5, 6 hours. Most people aren't like that, and you
No.
have to lay down. So that's why I'm going to start having retreats, is so I can do those kind of regression therapies in person. So it's interesting. You know,
Yeah, yeah. I
first,
mean, I will say that I have since I began with Dolores Cannon, I have been developing my own regression.
mhm,
And it's been working fabulously, and I've been doing that online. So there's just so much room to expand. But when I'm saying that I'm doing QHHT specifically, I would only be doing that in person, in
yeah,
honor of Dolores's, her
I don't
her
do the regression online. If I want to do that, I use shamanic journeying, and I just do a journey, and I can get the information and bring it back. But yeah, when I do regression, I want people to lay down, and then I can't see them unless I do
it's
remote.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll see where we move with this, with all of it.
With your first example, when she felt that she was alone, what came to my mind was, whenever I think, hey, am I alone? Just look at the sand. How many footprints do you see? When you only see one, they're carrying you and you're off track. Yeah, that's what I do. And I go, oh, I need to sit down and meditate and get my act together. So there's two sets of footprints in the sand.
Right.
Cool. Um, so did you want to talk about anything else besides the QHHT?
Well, in talking, I could talk about more of the way that I've been applying what I've learned with hypnosis to the
Oh, that would
seals.
be, oh yeah, that would be interesting.
So in the training where I practice the Jehovian seals, which affects the left feminine side, and the Aryan occult Draco seals, which affect the right masculine side. But I also learned a Lemurian healing temple regression from Indigo Angel. Again, I didn't focus on that because I really wanted to essentially master the other two before I got to that point. And so in the course of the QHHT training, I began to explore, okay, what is my Lemurian healing temple regression going to look like? And so in that process of exploring, Indigo Angel, she gave everyone in the class her basic blueprint. And so, I take what's there, I take a skeletal frame, and then I make it my own. And so that's exactly what I did. And in the course of working through that and creating it, I created my own regression, hypnotic regression. And then I demoed it with some more of my wonderful volunteers. And so I brought them back using my regression to the Lemurian timeline before the cataclysms. And we accessed the healing temples because there are more seals and implants that affect human consciousness that have been installed through the ages. And they affect us in different ways. And so this was a lot different from the seal clearing, but I discovered that it's very powerful. And I also discovered that, yes, I can create my own regression and it's very effective and people love
Of
it.
course you can, yeah. Yeah.
So it was
It's
just
your energy. So it's better when it's your energy. So let
yeah.
me ask you a question. So if you know it as a soul, you came here after Lemuria, um, do those Lemurian traumas, and I know what some of them are, do they affect you through your DNA if it's in your DNA, or it's not at a soul level if you came here later? How would it affect someone that came later?
So for instance, I have a friend, Divine Masculine. He has no karma. He has not been here before. He's here now to help. And he knows this. And he's very attracted to this. And so I'm in the process of really setting up the Divine Masculine Lemurian Healing Temple regression. He's going to participate in that. And he is going into that with the intention of being a surrogate on behalf of the others who they do affect. And so that's always a huge part of all the work that I do when I'm doing seal clearing. It's not just the individual that's in front of me, it's the individual who is a healer, who is a service to others being, and who wants to bring in and allow all of humanity that is affected, who wishes to receive the benefit, to receive it in this process. And so by that right there, that pretty much takes care of the question whether or not this person's soul actually experienced it, because in their compassion and their empathy and their need to heal and help, they're going back and they are accessing this healing on behalf of everyone. And so I've found that that's been something that has been reported to me from many people that I've taken through all of the seal clearings. Oftentimes people would say, oh yeah, that particular implant, like for instance, the crown of thorns. I know I don't have that. However, when we got to that place in the removal, I was feeling the implant that's affecting thousands upon thousands of people, and I'm clearing it for them. And so there's much to be said about that. Does
I
that make
know.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Makes a lot of sense. I met a Lemurian specific healer. She was part of my shamanic training. And I had run during my energy classes that I'd taken, I'd run into a number of people that couldn't feel energy in their hands. You know, you do Reiki or whatever, and you couldn't feel it. And she
Mhm.
said in Lemuria, they were cutting off the hands at the wrist of healers, and that there were a lot of people today with this trauma. So I know with acupuncture, I restore that when I find people like that. So yeah, we do, when we learn things, we do try to heal it. But that was the only thing that I learned that was a trauma from, and I run into a number of women like that who had problems with no energy. They couldn't feel the energy, and it's pretty easy fix. But I don't, what are some of the other kinds of trauma that the Lemurians have? Do you know?
The cataclysm, so this goes back to chelantic science, of which I have been a student for since I first discovered it a few years ago. But it talks about the sexual misery programs and the forced breeding programs, which occurred
Oh
when
yeah.
the Anunnaki came in. Thoth, the Thothian deception, the Luciferian rebellion, all of those things resulted in the fracturing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and it flipped them into the shadow. And so the toxic masculine is what we've been dealing with, just like the toxic feminine throughout our recent history and in our timelines that we are aware of. And so it's repairing and restoring with the intention of bringing back the original divine counterparts and healing from all of the sexual misery, trauma, the programming, everything that came in after the religion, how like all of those awful seals that relate to that, which are all about suppressing the divine feminine, creating bringing in the false king of tyranny, which is all about that militaristic, toxic everything relate yeah, I mean, it's just everything is just snowballs upon it, layer upon layer upon layer, and much of it does go back to that timeline in history. And so in the healing temples, you can restore all your wounding as well as your mother wounds. A lot of people have trauma that's relating to programs that occurred in fracturing with their family lineage, their matriarchal family lineages, their patriarchal family lineages. There's sexual abuse. There's just so addictions. There's so many things that tie back to these original core woundings that occurred, and that when you go prior to that, back to before the cataclysms, that timeline, when the earth was running the 13, the Christos spiral frequencies, you can essentially, bring the healing and let go of all of that. And so it's been very powerful. And all of this work, I just wish there were more hours in the day to do all the work that I
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah, I don't take people back to Lemuria, but that's part of what I do is I take them back to heal that mother-father stuff that goes on in families. Because until you heal it, you're not going to move forward. If you're
Yeah,
still blaming mom and dad, you haven't healed.
true, true.
You haven't
And
grown up.
right. And also tied to that whole thing is it's the victim victimizer program that we're seeing on full display that people can't seem to get out of. They don't even realize that
Mhm.
they're holding on to those.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of these really core, like these are core traumas, and
Hmm.
people are just not even aware of it. And this is a safe place to let that stuff go.
Yes. Good. That's great work. And you're right. That's sort of like an underlying trauma people have that they don't get to.
Yeah.
Instead, they have health issues and they deal with the health issues and they don't realize there's all this forgotten trauma that's maybe subconscious, even not even in their conscious mind. Yeah, very good. Nice. So you have a free gift, Maximize Your Meditation. Tell us about that.
So it's something that I created as I started doing before I started doing QHHT, because I wanted to give people, because I was working with a lot of people, not just my own regular light worker volunteers, but family members and friends of family members who were, I guess we could call them more normie, and some people that had a hard time visualizing. And so I thought, how can I, what can I do to help people to have the best experience possible and also kind of prepare them? So I created this little, it's like a mini book which just gives a lot of tips. It talks about, the different brain waves of what is hypnosis, all of that sort of thing, and gives some good tips that will hopefully help people to be prepared for really any type of hypnosis, or to have a better experience with meditation if they're new to it. So I figure, why not? Can't hurt.
Cool. So let me say then the link name. Now, if you're on YouTube, I'll post the link down below. But if you're listening to the audio podcast, it's Crystal Guide Earth
Grid.
Grid, GRID. Yeah, it is grid. It's hard to read when it's all mushed together. I should have written it out separate. Crystal Grid Earth Energy Healing.com forward
Mhm.
slash contact dash 10. So Crystal Grid Earth Energy Healing.com forward slash contact dash 10. So, Dr. Kenzie, do you have any closing words for us?
I just want to say, again, for all the light workers and energy healers out there, I have been seeing that there are a lot of opportunities to access these different types of practices. And so please, when the opportunity is presented to you, say yes and do it. Many healers are happy to do that, but there are also many who healing themselves is the last thing on their mind because they're too busy and focused on healing everybody else. And so please, I just really implore all of the healers out there there are opportunities like this. I'm not the only person in the world that is, focused on, oh, I learned something new and now I want to practice it with as many people as possible. And if it means I do 100 in a month, then I'll do that, because my goal is not only to develop my skill, but it's also to gift something while I'm learning. And so it's an exchange. So please take advantage of that. I Some people that I offered it to just couldn't find the time, and I felt like, why? I understand that you need to be driven, that you need to be providing and helping others, but also self-care is important. And so I really just want to remind people of that.
I took all this shamanic training, hypnotherapy training, NLP training, energy healing, mystery schools. I did all of that to heal myself because I was dying. And when people saw how much I healed, they started just coming to me. Will you help me? So, yeah, go into it first for self care, self healing. Heal yourself first, because then you understand what other people are going through and you have more compassion for them. It's not, I'm here to fix you. I understand
Mhm.
what you're going through, and if I can help, I will, is a different attitude than you're broken and I'm going to fix you. So, that's really good words.
One thing that I did do, that I think I alluded to this earlier, as I was coming into the tail end of finishing up all of my 100th monkey, starting to do the QHHT, I decided to do a 40-day discipline for myself on behalf of my true soulmate, my twin flame, whatever you want to call it, my person. So every night I dedicated it for that. On day 40, I finished it up on November 17th was day 40. November 18th, I received a text from a number that I didn't recognize out of the blue. And it was from an old love that was
Hmm.
actually the love of my life that I never forgot. 20 years ago, we were not ready. We couldn't have a conversation. We walked away from each other. Neither one knew that the other one cared. He was going through a dark night of the soul, and he just needed to reach out to me. And so he did on day 41. And now we are together. And so this is really kind of miraculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that definitely, that it was the process, and absolutely my own clearing. And as I've been going through this work, I absolutely have been healing myself. And I am at a place now where I'm just incredibly balanced, and I can do all of this kind of crazy scheduled stuff, and it's feeding me. And so it's a wonderful journey. And yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. In the process, we are absolutely healing ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when we heal ourselves, it ripples out. So we're actually
Mm.
healing others when we heal ourselves. Because when I healed, it healed my whole family.
Isn't that
I
wonderful? Oh, yeah,
damaged
that's
me.
wonderful.
Awesome. And all I did was work on Beverly.
That's all
I
it
love
takes, right?
you. I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Kenzie. And thank all of you for being with us. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And remember to be the light you want to see in the world.